Okay, kids, it's time for the season finale of the Fueled by Weird podcast, the only podcast featured on the first issue of Podcast the Magazine. I'm Chris Daly, and tonight I'd like to welcome Mr. Adam Freeman to the show. Mr.
Hey, that's
Freeman,
me.
how are we doing, man?
I'm good. It's been a long day of slinging comics, man. It's funny when we started talking about we started putting a comic book magazine into print. I didn't realize how much video was going to go into that, but I really should have known. I really should have.
Yeah, you wouldn't think, you're printing a magazine that it wouldn't be any video, but
Yeah, exactly. There's
it happens,
always
man.
this is 2026. We're making a print magazine, and that means lots of video.
There you
Yeah,
go. You just
awesome.
gotta.
Well, I'm happy to be on this one, man. This is Thanks so much for bringing me on.
Yeah, man, I'm super stoked to talk to you. I've heard nothing but good things about Comics the Magazine, and we're gonna dig all into it and
Let's
get into all
go.
the nitty gritty. But
Awesome.
first, I usually like to start these things off with an icebreaker question. So
Oh,
today's question is, would you rather be an Avenger or a Power Ranger?
ooh, man, that's a really good question.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough
I'm gonna
one.
say I'm well. I mean, obviously, both have their pluses. I mean, with Power Rangers, I feel like there's got to be like I feel like those Power Rangers definitely have some serious money behind them. Otherwise,
Sure.
they wouldn't have those pretty standard uniforms and all those crazy weapons.
Yeah,
Plus they get to do like those insane little dance moves just to get dressed. I mean, it's like
it's
fucking
true.
Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe I've come from comics, and one of the things that I think that people who work in comics pretty much all have in common is that we're all really kind of individualistic. We all really kind of want to be, yeah, we just want to stand out from the crowd, or we
Sure.
just want to, kind of recede and be the piece of people behind the scenes. So I think I got to go with the Avengers because each and every one of them has their own spiel, their own shtick. Like they all have something that makes them unique, and I love teams that come together that just feel like they shouldn't work.
Okay.
But man, when you all get together, you're more than the sum of your parts, and so I think I'm going to go as an Avenger. I'm going to take it. Yeah, there you
I
go.
like that. That's a good answer.
Yeah,
I'm gonna pivot a little bit, and I'm gonna pick Power Ranger just because I was a huge fan of Power Rangers growing up. I
sure.
didn't really get into. I mean, I was into comics as a kid. My dad kind of helped me get into comics a little bit. He had a pretty big collection. Some of my favorite ones though were like the books that were like the deep dive, like the almost like the encyclopedia books.
Oh,
And you
sure.
kind of have
Yeah,
like the deep
yeah,
dive in the. I can't remember what they're called. All of a sudden, I have one right over here, but I can't remember. But
yeah.
it just gives the deep dive in all the different characters, and I really kind of liked, diving in and kind of learning the background, how they got their powers, all that
Oh, yeah.
different kind of thing. That's just my weird thing. I just like digging in and hearing the backstory of how stuff happened, and just kind of getting to the root of, you've got this person or this whatever, and I like to kind of get to the root and like where they came
Yeah.
from, how they got started. It's just my weird obsession thing. So
That's us, comics fans, man. We love some insider knowledge. We
yeah,
love being the one who knows, right? Yeah,
yeah.
totally get that, dude. I get
So,
that a lot. Yeah.
being a fan of Power Rangers as a kid, that was kind of a big thing for me. Plus, you get to, control big robot dinosaurs, and I'm a big fan of big robots. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You're making a solid case. You're
Plus, I
making.
mean, all the points you pointed out earlier, those are just all selling points for, being a Power Ranger. So I'm super down for that.
If I could change clothes just by doing a dance move, that would be awesome. I think
Right?
if I could, oh man, that would be, yeah. I'm all for it. You might be selling me. I don't know. We'll see how the show goes. I might have changed my mind by the end of this.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So another thing to start us off, the show Fueled by Weird is, like I said before, kind of digging into the root of who people are, kind of their likes, their interests, their hobbies, all the
Sure.
stuff that comes together to make them who they are. So, when you're not busy, making comics, what are some of the things you're into? What are some of your hobbies?
Boy, well, I own a company called Prana Direct Market Solutions, and that that there's certain parts of that name. Direct Market Solutions refers to the network of comic book shops that are all over the world, and this like is once again incredible group of independent entrepreneurs, all that want to own and run their individualistic little clubhouses and places that people they can showcase comics in their communities. I love comic shops. There's that part. But the other part, the first part of it is prana actually is a Sanskrit word that talks about breath and energy. And I have some kind of line that I use to make that about comics and business and data. But the truth of the matter is I'm really into yoga and breath work and that sort of thing. So that's where prana came in. So
Okay.
that's still a big part of me.
Hmm.
I'm also, obviously I love comics. I feel like, but that's my business. So it's hard for me to say that that's my. I still spend way too much time and money on comics. That's for sure. But I don't know. I'm also a dad, so like I spend a lot of time in my garden, and I spend a
Okay.
lot of time with my kids,
Yeah.
and yeah, I would say that. Here's something. This year I started as of just to give me something. I work in my home. So this is my home office behind me. I just to give me a way to get out of the house. I started bartending as a
Oh, nice.
volunteer at an artist collective that had a bar. And man, do I love bartending. It's so nice and it's simple. Like you put on a show and you serve somebody something delicious and you get to chat with them. And it's too much fun. It's too much fun.
Very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool. Now, I've talked to a lot of people who, they say comics are their job and their hobby. So there's absolutely
sure.
nothing wrong with that at all. Um,
Sure.
it's kind of hard, especially if you're working in comics, to not have, comics as a little bit of a hobby at least.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you can see, I don't know if you
Oh
can see
yeah.
over here
Uh-huh.
all of my comps and comics. I still like to this it's still meticulously keep everything organized, and sorting comics is just like an ongoing process for me. You can also see
Yeah.
behind me this big stack of magazines. There's eventually going to go into that, but it's all of that is Comics and Magazine number 2, which just came in, is going to be in shops next week. I'm not sure when this is coming out, but it'll be in shops on April 1st. So,
Next week actually.
oh, perfect.
Next Wednesday.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, perfectly timed. This will be Comics Magazine number 2 with Battle Beast on the cover. Will be in shops when this goes live. So
It
perfect.
will be in shops already, so make
Yeah,
sure to visit your local shops. This will drop on Comic Book Day. So what better thing to do
perfect.
to pick up on Comic Book Day than issue number 2 of Comics and Magazine? That's
Countdown to
awesome.
Wednesday. Here it
Very
comes, right?
cool.
Yeah.
Now, bartending, that's kind of a cool thing to pick. Like, what made you decide
Yeah.
to kind of pick up bartending out of, all the things?
I'm not good at resting. That's really what it comes
Okay.
to. I'm just not good at stopping. I like to stay very busy. And there were a couple nights in my week where my family's not here and I needed something to do to get out of the house. And there's this one spot that I used to that I hung out at a lot. And it's sort of an artist collective. So
Yeah.
it's just this building full of antiques and art, and people show up there to have art events, and they also like do gatherings and such. And it's
Mhm.
I don't know, it's a wonderful space, and I wanted to contribute in some way. And I said, look, I've never bartended before, but I think I'd be good at it. And that was several months ago, and now I think I'm okay. I'm actually
Yeah.
I seem to have figured it out. It's just if you like alcohol, which some of us in comics do. I don't know, it's shocking to hear that people in comics drink alcohol, but
Right?
but if you like it and you really get nerdy about it, like I do everything I'm interested in, you can really just get real meticulous, and you put on a show and you get to know people. When they drink alcohol, they loosen up and they want to chat, and I do like chatting. So
Awesome.
all those things together, I don't know, man. It's just I like doing dishes. I don't know what it is. It's just fun. It's a
There
good
you
time.
go.
Yeah,
No, that's awesome. And it's funny that you say you like to get nerdy with all your hobbies, including bartending, because
sure.
not a lot of people would consider that nerdy. And when it comes to, nerdy hobbies or even, like I mentioned before, weird hobbies, um, people, automatically gravitate to, cartoons, video games, comic books, stuff like that. But really,
Yeah.
you could get nerdy about really anything, including bartending. So
Oh yeah.
that's kind of what makes everybody cool is because, just because it's not stereotypically nerdy doesn't mean you still can't get nerdy about it. And that's, a lot of people get that hang up like, well, this isn't, a nerdy thing. Like you can get nerdy about anything. Like anything
Oh
that you're
yeah.
like obsessed with or into, you can if you know a bunch about whatever it is, like regardless of the topic, sorry to tell
Oh,
you, but you just got nerdy about it, you know?
I'm serious. If you can tell me who was on your favorite baseball team 20 years ago, you're a nerd, right?
Yep.
If you can quote batting stats or yards run or assists, you are a nerd. There's no way
True.
around that,
It's
dude.
true.
And my nerdy hobbies just happen to be, comics, the business of comics. I love the business of comics. I can talk
Yeah.
about sales charts and metadata and all of that stuff all day long, but also like I could give you 10 minutes on what is a proper Manhattan and why it's called a Manhattan, and and how it should be prepared. I can, I listen, it really is just a mindset of the things you're interested in, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of keeping busy, you mentioned you're a dad. How many kids and how old are they?
We have three kids total. My stepdaughter is 23. She's the oldest, and my youngest is 11.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm kind of right there in the same wheelhouse because my youngest is 10 and
Oh, yeah.
my oldest is 18 and she's getting ready to graduate here in a couple months. So
Yeah, dude. It's
yeah,
weird time. It's a weird
it's
time.
it's weird, man, because you just get hit with that realization that they're not little anymore, and
Oh, I know.
you realize that one minute they're
Oh,
little and the next minute like, I mean, you can relate with your 11-year-old like I can with my 10-year-old. One minute, you're kind of, there, holding them. And then the next minute, you go wake them up in the morning and their feet are hanging off the end of the bed. It's like, where did this
exactly.
come from? Like, where did this happen? Like, it
And
just, in a
there's a
flash, it's
moment.
done.
There's a moment where they go from being kids to like people.
Yep.
And it's a weird moment because you don't expect it, but they just like show up one day.
Hmm.
They have personalities and they make you laugh, and they're like, they can actually play a game and
Yep.
occasionally beat you at it. Like
Yep.
it's incredible. I love this part, especially that age, man. 10 through 12. I know people give that age a lot of guff, and for a reason. I mean, that we all start to get some hormones and we get a little nutty.
Yep.
But man, it's also this magical time when you just start to become a person, and it's wonderful, man. Yeah, no, I love being a dad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wonderful, but at the same time, it kind of bums me out a little bit just because it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
they're not that little anymore and they're kind of
Oh
it's
yeah.
awesome because like you said, they're becoming a person, they're finding their own interests and all
Yep.
that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's like, oh, they're not, some of that stuff that you really cherished as them being little is gone now. Like they can like, for example, mine, she used to have trouble like saying certain like her grammar was a little bit weird, so
Oh sure.
she wouldn't pronounce certain words the right way, or she would have
Oh yeah.
nicknames for words she couldn't pronounce, but now she's
Yeah.
or like for example, if she got overwhelmed, she would call it over remote for some reason, and it was the cutest thing ever. She's like, "I'm feeling really over remote right now. I need to go." But then the other day, she's like, "I'm feeling very overwhelmed." I'm like, "What did you just say?"
Oh yeah,
So
and you mourn that. Like,
it's hard, man.
and it's also, like I said, they become people, but that also means
Yeah,
that, like, in your memory, though they're still that little person. Like, you look at photos
yep,
now of the especially is, I mean, our 11-year-old grew up in more of a social media world than our 23-year-old,
yeah,
or 21-year-old. And so we have photos of this one from, like, I don't know, every week of his life.
yeah,
So I mean, I missed that kid, but I
yep,
also love this kid. But they're two
yeah,
different kids. They
yeah.
legitimately, I kind of wish they could both be in the same room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going through
What can
that
you
with
do?
my 18-year-old because it's like, we're doing all the graduation stuff. So you're getting like all
Oh,
the little kid and the big kid stuff. And it's just like,
yeah, dude.
it's hard, man. But
It's
yeah,
the good stuff.
being a parent is like the best and hardest thing ever.
100%, dude.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody ever disparage that. That's the real role. And if you're doing it right, hopefully you've raised people that make the world a little better. And man,
True.
yeah. And we all know people who had parents who didn't do it right. So you gotta keep them from being those people.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. So, another thing I want to kind of pivot to really quick is just kind of a weird off-topic thing, and I'm kind of curious. The name Atom, ATOM exclamation.
Oh
I want to hear the
yeah.
story behind that.
Oh boy. I don't know. In some ways it's boring. In some ways, I mean, it's just all right. So back in the dark ages, before social media, we had these things called forums.
Yeah.
And so that was where we gathered online, was in these forums. And there was a very famous one called the Warren Ellis Forum.
Hmm.
That a lot of really incredible comics writers, creators came up in. Most notably, Chip Zdarsky, I think, became Chip Zdarsky in that. He went from being Steve to Chip in the Warren Ellis Forum.
Okay.
The Matt Fraction and Kelly Sudaconic met in the Warren Ellis Forum.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, so the story goes, during that period, there was a time where we were all changing our names to our superhero name. I don't know
Okay.
what my superhero name is. So
Yeah.
I'm like ATOM, sure, up and Atom, right? And
Yeah.
I do Atom exclamation point, and I leave it there in my signature file, which gets attached to every post. And if you're not looking at your own posts, you don't realize after a while that your signature file is that way. I left it there for too long, and then I went, oh, okay, and I changed it back to my given name, ADAM.
Yeah.
And there was this I hate, this is really embarrassing. This cute girl on the internet said, no, that's your name. And I went, oh,
Yeah.
well, all right, that's my name.
Yep.
So I kept it for a little while that way. And then I owned a comic shop between 2000 and around 2010 or so. And during that period, this is way back when there were things called newspapers, and they were really the best way to promote whatever it was you were doing. So the
Yeah.
local newspaper was always, you're trying to get in the paper any way you can. And I found that when I told the reporter my name was ATOM, I was going to get quoted. And when I told him it was ADAM, it was 50-50. I had to like really sell it. So I just became ATOM. And then when I moved into publishing, there was this conversation: do I keep it? Do I not keep it? And everybody just decided that was it. So every now, all of the times that I've been in what's called the masthead, right? So in a comic book, there'll be a listing of all the people who worked on the comic,
Yeah.
and all the people who work in the office that build the comic. Anytime my name has been in a masthead, it's always been ATOM, sometimes exclamation point, sometimes not. Adam Freeman. I say Adam and Adam the same way.
Yeah.
ATOM and ADAM come out of my mouth the same way, but
Yeah.
it's really, especially when we're dealing with folks across the pond, our British friends, they all feel the need to call me Atom. And I'm fine with it. It's
Okay.
fine. I go by both. It's interchangeable, but
Sure.
professionally, everybody knows me as at ATOM. So
Very
yeah,
cool. Yeah, I
yeah.
just was curious. I didn't know if there was a story behind it or not, but I'm glad that
All
I asked
right.
because
Yeah.
it may be boring, but I mean it's an interesting story. And like
Yeah.
for the kids out there who are listening to this, which I know they're not because most of the people listening are about our age or older.
Yeah.
Um, so if any kids out there are listening, forums are kind of like how Reddit is now.
Yeah,
Kind of sort of.
exactly. That's exactly right. Right. And but they would be a little more private. Actually, you know what they are is more like Discord. Like
Okay,
what
yeah, yeah,
Discord
yeah.
is now, that's
Yeah.
what these were.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was how we kind of came together. And also, like, I mean, look at me. I'm a middle-aged white guy. What do I have that makes me special? I just had to change my name. So, I'm also a marketer. I'm a salesman by trade. So you got to do whatever you can to stand out, right?
There you go. There
Yeah.
you go. Now, with all this talk of comics, I kind of want to get in the Wayback Machine really quick and
Oh, let's go.
go all the way back to what it was that got you interested in comics in the first place.
Well, that's a great question. I so like anybody, like I was growing up, people would hand me comics because you're a kid. I remember there being some Carl Ducks. One of my first memories actually was when my sister was born. So that makes me like 4. And she was born ill, and so they took me out to a family, family friend, or actually my great grandparents, and I was given a long road trip, so I was given a bunch of comic books to read. I still remember those. They were these, if you know who Carl Barks was, I later found out it was some Carl Barks like Ducks books, like the entire, oh shoot, what's it? Who are those ducks? I can't remember. Man, I'm there are people listening to this are going to be really angry with me. I can't remember. Uncle Scrooge. Okay, Uncle
Okay.
Scrooge and the kids.
Yeah.
All yeah. Anyway, um, so I really I remember loving those, and then later as a kind of a teenager, when I grew up watching the Adam West Batman show, loved that. Like it was, kind of campy and big, bright, and that was as
Yeah.
close as we got to as we got to superheroes on TV.
Yeah.
Loved them, so I started reading Batman comics when I was able to go ride my bike to the local comic shop, and I bought a Death in the Family. This was right when they killed Robin the first
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
a vote. It was a big deal,
Hmm.
and I loved the idea that I could buy a comic for, I don't even remember what the cover price was, like $2, and then maybe sell it for $6. I thought that was insane, but I
Yeah.
also loved the story around, there was a vote and we all picked, and that was fun. But yeah, I it's after that, I just kind of, comics have been a part of my life ever since. And I got a job working in a comic book store in the mid 90s, and then ended up buying that comic shop in 2000 and won an award that usually you can see, but right now this column of books is in front of it. We won the Eisner Spirit of Retail Award for it in 2008, and then had to go into publishing because the economy crashed and our store was suffering. And I've been in comics publishing ever since. So really, in many ways, I got the job in publishing because of working in retail. And so every job since the one I took, working behind the counter at a comic shop, has kind of been one after the other after the other. And I've been working in comics now for 30 something years. I'm an old man. I'm an old man, Chris. Old man.
I feel you, man. I just turned 41 this year, so I'm
Oh.
definitely feeling it.
Dude, I will tell you, my 40s, I felt like a superhero. You're in for a good stuff. You're a good stint, man. It's not until you're 50 everything just really starts falling apart.
Oh
You
man.
just
I already feel that way now, man. Like this last year I spent some time like trying to dial my health in. So like I
Oh
went
yeah.
and got on some ADD medication and that's been
Oh
amazing.
yeah.
And my wife ratted me out and got me on a CPAP machine. So that's my life now. So that's definitely
Sleep will change your life. I wish I understood sleep in my 40s. But in my 40s, when I discovered yoga and discovered breath work, and yeah, I will say it changed. That period really did change my whole body, my whole life. So you're in for a good run. You'll be good.
Yeah,
You'll be
I've
fine.
been on a CPAP since November and I'm still not really sure how I feel. But I definitely like I feel more rested, but I'm like I feel more rested, but I have to have an octopus strapped to my face. So I'm not really sure if the trade-off's really there just yet, but I understand that it'll take some more
Uh,
time to get used to it. I'm fine with that.
It will. I mentioned breath work earlier.
Yeah.
There is a book that I'm reading. A man named James Nestor wrote a book called Breath or Breathe. Is it Breath? Anyway, where he talks about the science of breathing.
Mhm.
And dude, like I've started sleeping with tape on my mouth so that I
Oh,
can make
wow.
sure that I breathe through my nose, and
Yeah.
all the difference in the world. It's crazy. It's
Yeah,
crazy how much better I feel.
I've seen like some CPAP users do that. Like they'll put tape on their
Yeah.
mouth, and it was kind of a funny one because it's like when you got the CPAP on, the power goes out, so you've got the tape on your mouth, and everything quits because you've got the nose thing on, and so it was kind of funny. But yeah, that's what kind of mine is mine goes just over my nose, and so I sleep with my mouth closed, and I guess
Always.
I don't have a problem. I used to have a problem snoring, but I guess I don't anymore. But I don't know
Yeah.
how having my nose covered has now made me not breathe through my mouth anymore. So I guess that's a plus, I guess.
I guess I think it's because but the CPAP machine is pushing this. I can't believe we're really getting into this. The CPAP machine is the way it works is by pushing the
Yeah.
air in so
Hmm.
that you can't like it. It isn't, you're not like trying to then trying to go past that compression.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's been a lot of really interesting research on people who have learned to breathe through the nose during the day and like tape your mouth at night,
Yeah.
being able to get rid of their CPAP machines because they have regulated the snoring, they've regulated the apnea that leads to that. But and you just grow those muscles in a way that actually makes it changes everything. It's really, I mean, you mentioned your ADD. I struggle with some ADHD. I keep joking that I have figured out a way to weaponize my ADHD. There are times when it is not.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
really dialing in breath and dialing in sleep, oh, makes all the difference for me. It just
Yeah.
changes my focus.
I
Yeah.
mean, we talked about being old men, so of course we're going to bring up stuff like CPAP machine, but yeah, it definitely forces it up there because the last couple
Yeah.
nights it felt like I told my daughter like I felt like it's trying to inflate me like a balloon and shoot me up to the moon, and she's like, "That sounds terrible." I'm like, "Yeah, it's not great." But yeah, they diagnosed me with ADHD as well, and
Yeah.
I used to medicate with caffeine, and it only helps
Oh yeah.
kind of. But
Kinda.
I used to have a big problem with what they call now. I didn't know what it was called, but I guess they call it task paralysis, where you get
Oh yeah.
bombarded with so many tasks, you get overwhelmed and don't know where to start, so you kind of just shut down.
Yeah.
Um, this has helped kind of regulate that quite a bit. And
That's great.
one fun thing I've noticed is the ADHD medication helps you focus, but you don't get to tell it. It doesn't help you focus on the right thing sometimes. So if you take it and you don't like, all right, I'm going to focus here, you'll focus on the first thing when the medicine hits, and that's your focus. So it's really hard you have to
So I
make
have
sure.
to do my taxes, but I just picked up some knitting.
Yep.
That's what I'm doing.
That's my whole day. So yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword where, it helps you
Interesting.
focus, but sometimes it helps you focus too much on the wrong thing. So you have to really like, all right,
Fascinating.
I'm dialed in, the medicine's about to kick in, so here we go.
I got to
So
make my list and be ready. All right,
yep,
here it comes.
it's pretty exciting. Okay,
Awesome.
so one other thing I kind of wanted to touch on real quick is, you mentioned working in the comic shop, and that's I was going to ask how that kind of happened, but you answered that for me, which is awesome when that works out.
Yeah.
Um, so it's cool that you went from working there to, being the boss. That's super awesome. And also,
Yeah.
congrats on the Eisner, man. That's
Thank
not
you.
something that everybody can do. And some people say, "Oh, well, you got it because you ran a store." Like, but you ran a store though, and that's not something that everybody can do. And so that's
Yeah.
that's very cool. Regardless of how you get it, that's awesome that you have it. So congrats on
Well, we got lucky, and like anything else, I studied and made sure that we did everything we could to win. Like I went in there, I went in. There is a strategy towards getting the judges interested in your shop, and if you're
that.
really
Yeah.
careful, you can increase your chances. And we got lucky. We did it once, and we won that year. And I will say it didn't really help the shop much, but it has definitely helped my career since. Because when I can say I was an Eisner award-winning retailer and now I work in publishing, that it's a nice transition for people. So yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
So I kind of want to ask, how did you go? Well, let me back up. So you
sure,
went from owning the store to, you were able to, navigate that into a job with Top Cow, which
yeah.
not a lot of young kids have heard about Top Cow, but us, growing up in the 90s, that was like a big deal, Top Cow.
They were.
Then
They still
you
are. I mean, they still are
right,
going
yeah.
strong. Yeah,
Yeah, I
Mark
mean,
Silvestri and Matt Hawkins, they're still making that work. Yeah,
yeah, I don't want to discount them. I just,
yeah,
you don't hear about them as much as you did in the 90s because it was kind of
yeah.
like a big thing. You also, helped relaunch Valiant Comics, and
That's
you
right.
also helped launch Bad Idea Comics. And
Sure did.
of course, with Prana you launched your own company. So
Yeah.
how did you make it, transition from shop owner to, getting into the other side of comics?
I really do attribute it to just being curious. I think
Okay.
that for me, it was those forums and getting to know the community and doing the networking and understanding who like the shops were, and not just kind of really dialing in, not just only focusing on mine, but understanding that the community at large and the industry at large, and really wanting to understand that. I will say those first few years, I don't think I was any good at it. But you know, being curious about how the system works and how all of the mechanics of it works. When I was in Top Cow, I would say my favorite thing about it was they put me in, you know, working in a comics office. Their real estate is always at a premium, so you just work wherever they put you.
Yeah.
And so I was in the room where they kept all the records, and so in between sales calls and whatever, I would just peruse the paperwork and try and understand how the business worked. Um, I'm, you know, I just at the end of the day, I think my superpower inside of comics is just my genuine love of the process and my I mean for the longest time I did not want to be in front. I always wanted to be behind the scenes and understand how the whole thing worked as a system. Um and I think that's it. That has given me longevity because when you're one of the few people who know how all the pieces fit together, when you know how, you know, printing works and distribution and data management and all of the pieces that go into publishing that are not storytelling, and then you get to a place where you understand storytelling and how editorial works, and then working with creators and how the agreements with creators are structured and how deal structures work. All of those things together kind of, you know, they make you valuable to what are usually small companies that need people who to be like, you know, all around players. You know, there's anytime you are able to um kind of give ideas that are not just about sales or not just about marketing or not just about social media, but are designed to solve a problem in a way that solves a problem with many for the whole company. It makes you invaluable, and as a result, like I've had some really good gigs. I've had some really fun, you know, making comics and selling comics, dude. It's been a weird career, let me tell you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's you know, you kind of done a little bit of everything, and you know, if
Yeah.
you wouldn't have been able to have those opportunities if not only you, you know, were curious about it, wanted to learn more about it, you if you never would have taken a chance on yourself, you know, you
Yeah.
wouldn't have done stuff like, you know, creating your own company. So, how
Yeah.
scary was it to kind of go from, you know, working at Top Cow, working at Valiant to kind of take a chance on yourself to launch your own thing?
Well, I was also raised by entrepreneurs. Like I was just talking to my grandmother last or 2 nights ago, and she was telling me some stories about when she was a kid about her father and how many different jobs he had and how he was always really entrepreneurial. And my dad, her son, he was very entrepreneurial. He, you know, owned like fast food restaurants, and he was always looking for, you know, new business ideas, and that's kind of something we would just play around with. You know what you could do, you know, that was a phrase we would use. And so I, you know, I was kind of trained up in that.
Okay.
So for me, it never felt like, it never felt risky, but also I've also been comfortable in not having that sort of safety net that like comes with people who have corporate jobs, you know.
Yeah.
My 401k is not nearly what it would be if I had just gotten a day job and stayed stuck with it for 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, my prospects have gone up and down, and I've been willing to work for very little. And God bless them, my family have always supported me in these endeavors, even when they probably shouldn't have. But you know, it's comics. It just gets in your blood, and you can't stop. It's, you know, it just keeps you going. So yeah, the only way to that any success is through lots and lots of failures. And so you have to
Sure.
be able to learn to fail and learn not to like just allow it to crash down on you when you do. So
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think that's the answer. I don't know.
No,
Maybe
that
I'm just
works. I mean,
dumb.
you know, it sounds like you come from a long line of people who are willing to take a chance on themselves. And, you know, so it's
Yeah.
not like the family business is taking a chance on yourself, you know, starting your own thing or,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. So that's very cool. That's, you know, you've really not known anything else other than to do that. So that's very cool.
Also, I mean, I'm also overselling myself. I've never actually gone in, except for when I was a line cook for a little while before all the comic stuff's happened. I've
Yeah.
never actually gone in and applied for a job with a job listing and actually gotten the job. I have never, I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe I just don't interview well. I don't know. I always kind of had to make my own way just because that's because I was the only one who would pick me. So
There you
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Very
There you
cool.
go.
Very cool. All right, so now I want to talk about the big main event. I want to talk about
Let's
Comics
go.
the Magazine. So,
Let's go.
for those out there listening who have never heard of Comics the Magazine or don't know about Comics the Magazine just yet, why don't we
Yeah.
take a minute here to talk about it?
Sure, absolutely. So, Comics the Magazine was our first issue was out on March 11th. Our second issue will be out on April 1st, which I think is when this episode is
Mhm.
dropping.
Yep.
And then we'll have it out on the first week of every month until, they figure out that I don't know what I'm doing. But so Comics the Magazine is just an unapologetically enthusiastic a publication about comics. We love this industry. We love the medium. We love the people who make these books. We love the people who sell these books. It comes from that place of love. And as a marketer, there was this obvious hole of we needed something in the shops that sold the books that were in the shops, because people who buy comics generally, I have really good data around this, generally they don't go to the websites. They do maybe go to some social media, but they don't make up their minds about what they're going to buy until they're in the shop. They're looking at the racks and they're talking to the people behind the counter. And so the only way to really get in front of them were magazines for many, 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 many years. But it's been 20 years or so since we've had a regular magazine that was doing that work. And for a while of those 20 years, we had, journalists online who were we could use as marketers to promote. And even those websites, those journalists, they've kind of lost their effectiveness, or they've gone off and done other things. And so as a marketer, we ran into a problem of how do you communicate with fans? And so that was one of the pieces that we were obviously trying to fill. And then the other was, I think that social media really failed us, right? It was sold to us as this connection. It was a way where you're going to find your friends, you're going to be able to discuss the things you like, you're going to be able to celebrate wins, you're going to be able to share information. And I think worse for all of us, it's really become the opposite. It's become the place that most people share what they hate, and they only come together in conflict. And the only
Right.
time that people get attention is when they are saying something snarky or rude or mean. We don't want to do that. We want something that is just, as I said, unapologetically optimistic about comics, because comics are powerful and they brought us together and they excite us every week. They get us into comic shops. Comic shops, by the way, are this incredible thing in business that did not die, even though brick and mortar everywhere else did. I don't know what it looks like in your town, but in mine, all the strip malls are full of services. There's nail salons and karate studios and barbers, but there are no more retail stores except for the comic shops. I have data that goes back almost 3 decades, and in the last 20 years or so, we have not seen a change plus or minus 4% in the store count of comic shops. Now that's in those 20 years, independent bookstores died almost and then came back. Record stores, of course, went away. Music stores are gone. They're now beginning to make a comeback, but only just a little bit.
Yeah.
We don't really have the kind of brick and mortar places where we used to go hang out and bond over the thing that we love, unless that thing we love is coffee, right?
Right.
Or alcohol.
Yeah.
So comic shops though have kept on. And why have they kept on? Because it's a weekly cycle. You go in every week, you see the person behind the counter that you love, you get to buy the things that you love, you get to take them home and read them, and then put them in bags and boards and file them away. It's a whole thing. You
Mhm.
get to, like, some people like to think about the value of them, some people just like to catalog and keep them, some people, all of it kind of comes together to make comics this really special environment that should be celebrated and shouldn't be full of snark and hatred and anger. I mean, we still do have plenty of snark and hatred and anger, and most
Oh,
of
for
that
sure.
happens on Blue Sky. So we just avoid Blue Sky and we just made a comic book. So yeah,
Right.
or we made a
Yeah.
magazine.
And
Yeah.
the weird thing is Blue Sky didn't start out that way. It started out as
No.
like an amazing place to go that was a good alternative for everything else, but now
Yeah.
it's kind of flip-flopped and done the opposite. But you're right. With retail stores that it's kind of been dwindling over the years, again going back to the 90s where you've got
Sure.
all different kinds of stores you can go to get any number of things,
Yeah.
even a toy store that those most kids don't even know what that is anymore beyond
Yeah.
the the toy section at Walmart or whatever. But um yeah, with my comic shop, growing up, it was awesome. It was this huge place. It had some action figures, it had comics, it had a few other things. But as the years have gone on, it went from a big place to a smaller place. It kind of made it a little bit more cozy.
Yeah.
And like you said, you've got the guy behind the counter every week who you get to know, he gets to know you. And now, so the people that owned it retired and they sold it to this other guy who's a very nice guy. Um, but now they've kind of converted the shop to be less about comics and more about games, which is kind of a bummer. Um,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I've gone in a few times and just the whole vibe is different. Like you've got all these tables in there for people to play games, which is fine and makes sense because that's
Sure.
it's kind of the same crowd, the gamers and the comic book readers, but it
Yeah.
feels like the emphasis is more on games now instead of comics, which is kind of a bummer, but it is what it is. We have another little store that has some comics, but they're more older ones. They're not so much to the newer ones.
Right.
But they've also got a lot of other stuff in there as well. So there's not really any more just solely focused, at least in my town. But I live in a pretty small town in Idaho.
Oh, gotcha.
There's other towns that are further out that have bigger stores that I've heard are pretty awesome. But
Yeah.
at least for here, there's not a whole lot just in regards to comics. But yeah,
Well,
it's
think about that for a minute, though. You live in
yeah.
a small town in Idaho and you have two comic shops to choose from. Take that in for just a second. How many record stores do you have to choose from?
One kind of little one. And then one of the stores that sells comics, they also have music and like toys and other
Oh,
stuff too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's my point is that,
Yeah.
even though it may not be, I mean, that I think we're about to go into a boom where people are going to start opening comic shops,
Yeah.
right? People like yourself are going to say, "Well, this is not the environment I want, so I'm going to go create the environment I want."
Yep.
I think we're going to start seeing a lot of those in the next, I would say, in the next 8 years or so. You're going to see a real huge rise, and I have my own pet theories of why we have a new demographic coming into the comic shops, and I think that's going to be growing that whole sector for a while.
Yeah,
So yeah.
and physical media is making a huge
Oh
comeback.
yeah.
So, not just with records, but with books and with comics and all that stuff too. Because
Seriously.
the generation that had the appeal of, digital comics, which I'm not knocking digital comics, stuff like that, because it's awesome to, you could carry around a tablet with thousands of books on it, which it's awesome.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
like Stan Lee said, comics are like boobs. There's nothing like holding one in your hand, you know what I mean? But it's like you said about social media, like, and I've said this many times on this show that social media is kind of a bummer now, and it
Yeah.
can for a lot of times be a real sucky place. And like you said, you don't really get any interaction. Like people will share stuff they've worked hard on, and like they'll get almost no reaction to it. But if they share something snarky, or they share something funny, or they share something about being a bummer or whatever, they get tons of interaction on it. So it's
Yeah.
like you're right. Back, in the early 2000s when, Facebook became a thing, it was a real good thing where you could like interact with
Yeah.
people and talk to people. But now it's more just force feeding you ads that are similar to stuff you've been like interacting with, and just
Yeah.
people getting on there and saying, this is my political view, and anyone who's different than this is wrong and you're dumb and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you just go and spread all this hatred on social media. It's like, what good
Yeah.
does that do? Honestly, like, you're not, all you're doing is telling people how much you hate something. Like, why don't you,
Yeah.
like you said, let's put some positivity back in the world?
Focus on the thing you love. And that's just it. It's
Exactly.
hard to do that in those environments because that's not what drives traffic, right? Those environments are designed to gather attention. They're designed to keep you engaged. They're designed to keep you scrolling. And it's really, I mean, if you picked up a phone because you're anxious and suddenly you looked at three things that made you feel good, you might put the phone down.
Yeah.
But if you pick up the phone and you scroll through and all these things are making you more anxious and you're still looking for something that makes you feel good and you're just going to keep scrolling until you find it, you're never going to get out of that loop. The other thing is,
True.
I just there's a woman who works for a company called Circana, which is they run BookScan, and they analyze data and they analyze trends. And she said something last week that really stuck with me, which is that books are on the rise, and one of the reasons they are is that she used this phrase, an attention fitness strategy. Right. So we talked about breath work earlier, and
Mhm.
you're talking about, like, trying to change parts of your anatomy, your physiology, but you're doing that through a practice, right? You're doing that through focused attention on the things you're trying to fix. And one of the things she said was people are now picking up books and comics so that they can once again focus their attention on something. And a really interesting piece to me is you cannot, the internet should be infinite, right? We should be
Mhm.
able to just I should be able to write 100,000 words on something I'm interested in and post it on the internet, and people should be able to find it. And if they love the 100,000 words, they'll sit and read it. They don't.
They
Why?
don't.
Because the
It's true.
screen has so much else going on, all these
Hmm.
alerts. It's always trying to get your attention to look for something else. You pick up a magazine, and I write 10,000 words in a magazine, you can sit and read the magazine. Why? There are no alerts. There's nothing else calling your attention away from it. You can actually sit, and it is that attention fitness strategy, that practice of allowing your attention to focus in on something long enough to take it all in. And that's fewer and far between if you are trying to do it in a digital space. So
Yeah. I mean,
magazines, print magazines. That's the answer.
and I can attest to that too, because for a while, someone I used to be friends with, and we used to write like a fictional series that we would just post on the internet for free for people to read.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that it didn't get read very much. So yeah, that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense that we post it for free and people just all read it and then they never go do. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's and that's definitely why, because there's all the bells and whistles of all the different, flashing boxes and pop-ups that come up that make it hard to keep your focus.
I mean, and there's, I mean, it just makes sense because there's the you are, when you pick up a phone, you open one of those apps, you are fighting with people who have advanced degrees who spend all day doing nothing but using their big brains to hold your attention for just a second longer, for just a minute longer. It's like going into a gunfight with a knife. You're
Yep,
never going to win that battle. So you have to just
true.
put it down and pick up something that is printed. Yeah.
It's true. All right, so kind of the way you've described comics the magazine to me makes me feel like it's a very similar to like Wizard and stuff like that that was in the 90s. So is that kind of what you guys were going for? Kind of trying to compare this to, the older listeners that I mentioned before that are listening to this who are very familiar with Wizard magazine. Is that kind of the same vibe that Comics the Magazine is going to be shooting for?
Somewhat. I would say that we've read a lot of Wizard magazines. I was running a comic shop and owning a comic shop in the 90s and the early 2000s when Wizard was in its heyday. So of course I've read a lot of Wizard magazines. I have a lot of Wizards here
Yeah, I think
that
I
we
do too,
use,
actually.
right?
Yeah.
But I also have a lot of other magazines too. I mean, for me, it was as much about the Comics Journal and the Comics Buyer's Guide, um, that as anything else. Yeah, I think in many ways we keep saying Wizard is the old Comics the magazine, because what we're doing is more for today. You're not going to see us do casting calls, for what film is going to be out, because these days it's common for comics to become film. Why would we even want to talk about that? So we're
Yeah.
not going to be talking about that. We're not going to be getting into the price guide. We have a price guide, but we're still trying to figure it out. It doesn't really work right now because the prices are available online at any given time. So it's not really the things that drew people to Wizard are not going to be there. But I will say the things that I love about Wizard was it drew us together. For that week, whenever it would come out, we were all reading the same thing. Wizard outsold every comic on the stands during the period it was out.
Yeah.
And that's because we were all reading it. and we were all kind of gathered together and understanding our culture together in the same sort of focal point. So I would say that in many ways that's what we're trying to do, is be that sort of focal point for our community to gather together. The things that we're trying not to do are, they were, let's just say, you go back and read some of them, they're a little, I don't know, problematic. This is probably a good word for it.
Yeah,
Because it was written like it was a clubhouse. It was a clubhouse, and you felt like you were invited, but definitely there are definitely people who were not.
sure.
These days you can't do that. Comic shops are basically 60-40 male to female now as far as audience goes. You can't make jokes about, women's bodies, in front of them, and think that they're going to come in the same ways that Wizard did. So
Right,
that's not what we're trying to do, but we are trying to be that kind of gathering point, that actual moment of community when we're coming together to read it. And so far, just based on the social media, we're seeing the posts that we're seeing as people are discovering it. I think we're getting there. I'm really proud of the fact that people are so excited about this magazine. So,
for sure.
um, yeah, I think we're getting there.
That's awesome. So it's kind of like, kind of like Wizard, except you guys kind of just strip all the other stuff out and just focus on just the comics part of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Okay.
plenty to talk about in comics.
Yeah,
You talked about game stores or comic shops and game stores, right? The comic shops do that because they have to diversify in order to, like, right now single issue comics are killing, right? The
sure.
Absolute line is just bringing people in droves. There's
Yeah,
this whole Dogman generation, these Gen Z kids who grew up reading comics. They're going into comic shops for the first time, and they're seeing a Batman that looks like the manga they know,
yeah,
right? So like they're really excited about comics for the first time. But the comic shops, like the one you're talking about, they had to diversify to make sure that they were going to last, even if that
yeah,
went down,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
So what I love too is the stores that diversify but only do comics, right? So yes, they have new issues, but they also have back issues. And they also have high-end back issues. And they also have graphic novels. They also have graphic novels for kids, and they have entire romance sections, and they have and so that when this part goes up, that part goes down, they still are running a business. That's more what Comics and Magazine is. It's going to be about comics. It's going to be about the monthly issues that we all love, but it's also going to be about graphic novels. We have in our first issue, we have Dave Baker, who's one of my favorite writers in comics, but he also writes about comics, talking about a book from Sammy Harkman, who, I had not heard about Blood of the Virgin until he wrote about it. But he does a 2 full-page spread just on this book that, someone's gonna discover this, and it's gonna be their first book. So there's plenty to talk about just in the world of comics without ever getting into animation or games or whatever else that we could
yeah,
be adding in there. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Now, in Comics and Magazine, are you guys just covering like the big companies? Are you guys covering indie comics as well?
Oh, I mean, you can't get more indie than Blood of the Virgin.
True.
And when in one of my favorite pieces in here is a roundtable with this is issue 1 I'm holding in my hands. Tony Fleek, Scotty Young, and Kyle Higgins, where they're talking about the crossing over from doing big corporate comics to their own creator-owned stuff. We get into um an old Swamp Thing that was Rick Veitch's Swamp Thing that's finally getting published after decades of being in a shelf somewhere. We've got this guy, Michael Sweater, who does these really cool little cartoons that are about kind of comics culture. But really, like, I think to highlight what you're talking about, there we have a piece at the very end where Joe Keating, who is our editor in chief on this project, he wrote about this guy named Drew. Why is Drew? Why can't Drew Rendy? And Drew Rendy did this book called Limerence. No one has ever. You can't. It's not distributed, right? No big publisher is covering Remnants, but there was just this week where Joe said that everybody in his Instagram feed was sending him, "Have you seen this guy? Have you seen this guy? Have you seen this guy?" And so we celebrate him in the back of this book, even though you can't get it through comics distribution. You have to go directly to Drew to get it. Doesn't get much more indie than that. So yeah, I would say
Sure.
we cover the whole gamut.
That's true. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, like Adam said, Comics and Magazine comes out every single month. Make sure you visit
Absolutely.
your local comic shop to pick up the latest issue. Latest issue number two comes out when this comes out, which is today on April Fool's Day. It's not a prank, it's not a joke. New comic book day. We got issue two of Comics and Magazine. Um, Now, I guess I should ask, if someone doesn't have a local comic book store and they want to pick up a copy of it,
Sure.
are there ways around it? Like, is there like a subscription? Is there somewhere online they can go and like order a copy of it?
Not at the moment. Right now, we're really just focused on comic shops. We love comic shops. We want to support them. There may be a time when we do subscribe, but I will tell you that there's some really great shops that are doing online sales for it. A lot of them are throwing it in for free if you order a certain amount of other product. A lot of them are throwing it in for free if you just order any shipment. But at 2.99, you can get it from almost any comic shop anywhere. I will say that we were so heartened by the fact that three-quarters of the comic shops that are open ordered at least one copy for their
Nice.
shelves. And so we decided to send a free copy to every store that didn't. And so, at least on March 11th, every comic shop in the world had a copy of Comics the Magazine. So you should be able to find it if you have a local comic shop. And if not, I would say, oh, seriously, I was a little bit afraid. I don't know if you know the phrase SEO, search engine
Oh,
optimization,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? I was a little because people will decide to call their companies a certain thing so they're easy to search for. We were a little bit worried about the SEO on Comics the Magazine. What happens when you put in Comics the Magazine into a search bar? Who knows what's going to come up? Turns out now it's just Comics the Magazine. So you can't
Nice.
really enter it without finding somebody who's mail ordering it. It's out
There you
there.
go.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, check your local shop, check all over the place. Get yourself a copy. I've heard nothing but good
100%.
things, and I'm excited
Oh,
to check it out.
absolutely.
So I do want to ask one more thing. So I
Let's go.
saw the sneak preview for issue three, and you
Yeah.
guys got Eastman and Laird to do the cover. How did that work out?
Oh man, that was such a big day when that came in. So the story is Peter Laird doesn't do art anymore.
Yeah,
He's basically said, "Hey, I'm done.
retired kind of.
I created the turtles. I can go live, on an island somewhere and be just fine." Because every
Yeah.
new generation has discovered the turtles ever since.
Yeah.
Um, but Kevin Eastman still is very active.
Oh
Still
yeah.
very much loves
Mhm.
comics. Is creating stuff. He found in his warehouse somewhere this original Peter Laird drawing that had never been published. And
Oh
so he
wow.
inked that. Now, IDW is doing a cover, using that as a cover for a comic book, and
Sure.
they did have it colored. But I have to tell you, Rico Renzi, who is the designer of Comics the Magazine, he's the head of
Mhm.
our creative head. He is one of the best designers in the world, period, nonstop, not just in comics, but period.
Gotcha.
And he took that piece and recolored it in a way that I think is better than the one that IDW did. So yeah, it's going to be on issue number 3. And we have this interview that we have with the team that is doing the new Turtles book. Oh, dude, you're going to learn so much. You're going to love the Turtles all over again after you read this thing.
That's very cool because as a longtime Turtles fan, I'm super super pumped. It's
I
very
have
very
no
cool.
doubt. I have no
Very
doubt,
very
man.
cool.
Awesome.
Cool, man. All right. So I
Oh,
want
you know
to.
what? I'm going to give you a sneak preview of something.
Okay.
In that the issue, I'm going to tell you. I don't know if we've talked about this in public, but if so, you'll be getting an exclusive. We
Perfect.
have a little sidebar that talks about two Turtles fans. One who is 4, who just loves the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and one who is 40. And what is the two of how the two of them agree that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are the greatest thing. And
Cool.
I mean, I'm sure you as a 40-year-old dad, you'll totally get that. It's just it draws us all together.
It's true because that's something that I've been able to connect with my 10-year-old on is that
There you
she is
go.
in love with the turtles. So yeah,
Exactly.
it's kind of cool how that kind of comes around every
Yep.
generation. It's very very cool.
Yep.
All right, man.
Awesome.
So, one last thing before I let you go, I usually try to ask everybody to, for their first time on the show anyway, to
Yeah.
share a bit of advice for other people who want to be creatives out there. So what's a bit of advice that you would
Ooh,
share? And it can literally be about any topic, in regards to creativity.
creativity. That's a really great question. I'm going to take a sip of water while I vamp for a minute to think about that.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. If you want a creative life, if you want a creative career, if you are looking to take part in this world of that we let's just focus in on comics, right?
Okay.
And there's lots of opportunities for creativity in comics. Um, one of them is obviously creating the comics. You mentioned I worked at Bad Idea. I will say that one of the things I'm most proud about at Bad Idea is that we were encouraged to be just as creative in the marketing of the comics as we were in the comics themselves. So, my advice to anybody who's looking for a career or a business in comics and wants to come at it from a creative viewpoint is one, just consume, just take it all in, right? Just be you are going to understand story just almost by osmosis. But don't let consumption get in the way of creating. Like, you need to sit and do the work, even if it's just writing, 5 sentences a day. You need to sit and do the work. Um, those are my I would say, think of creativity as a practice and not as something that comes from inspiration, right? You need to be able to sit and do that thing that you love, even on days when you don't feel like you love it. You still got to do it. And the other piece, and this is going to sound really woo woo, so I apologize for that in advance, but
Okay.
we've already talked about breath work, and we've already talked about taping your mouth shut when you sleep.
Yeah.
I will tell you that my creativity as an adult ratcheted way up once I discovered my meditation practice. Being able to clear your mind once or twice a day. My goal is always whenever I brush my teeth, right? You brush your teeth and then you sit for 10 minutes and you just clear your mind, and maybe you do a little breathing exercise. Maybe you listen to a bell, maybe you listen to a guided meditation, but whatever it is, just that sort of, we talked about attention fitness strategy, that sort of creativity fitness strategy just makes all the difference in the world. And your ability to then translate those thoughts and those ideas into something that will speak to people. So I would say that's my big takeaway is go meditate.
That's good advice for sure. I mean, it definitely helps to, wipe the slate clean every once in a while to kind of get the creative juices going. And, like you said, creativity is like a muscle. You have to keep training it out if you
Absolutely.
want to develop it more. So that's great advice.
Good.
All right, so let's give you a chance to let the people out there know where can they keep up to date with stuff on social media.
Sure.
Where can they find you?
Well, I go by at ATOM Freeman. You put that search into almost any on social media. I'm on Facebook because that's where comic book retailers are, and I'm on LinkedIn because that's where business folks are. So those are my focuses as far as social media goes. I do a little bit on Instagram and on some of those. Adam Freeman, Adam Bang Freeman, because the exclamation point is a bang in the newspaper world. That's how you find me. Otherwise, Comics the Magazine, comicsthemagazine.com, Comics the Magazine on nearly every social media platform. You can find that. I also have a company called Prana DM, pranadm.com. You go there, you can sign up for a newsletter. If you're really nerdy about the business of comics, that newsletter is going to teach you a lot. So those would be the best places to find me.
Very cool. Now for me, I want to take a minute to thank Pizza Force or thank Polygon Horizon. The song Pizza Force is the song I use for the show. It's a great song. Go check them out on Bandcamp and SoundCloud and show those guys some love because they're incredible.
Awesome.
You can find me on social medias on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I'm also, you can find me at fueledbyweird@gmail.com. Shoot me an email, come on the show, chat about all sorts of fun stuff. You can find the show on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. And I also have a link tree where you can find all the links if you forget any of these, because I know I do sometimes too.
And don't
Um,
forget to subscribe. This man needs your subscriptions.
yes,
Hit
definitely.
that button. All
Definitely
right.
like, subscribe, and share.
There you go.
Check out Hassel Hutchinson. He's my dude. The Nerdy Manroom shows his channel. He's got the Nerdy Manroom show, Card Subject to Change, which is a what if for pro wrestling. If you like pro wrestling, he does a lot of unboxes too. So go check those out. Big Rob's House of Entertainment, no Chinese food. Go check him out too. He's got lots of cool toy hauls and all that stuff over there.
Big
Uh,
Bob.
we come together to make the Stay Weird Network. It's a podcast dedicated to bringing some awesome back. It's a podcast network dedicated to bringing some awesome back to the internet. So please check us out at Stay Weird Network on YouTube and Instagram. Check us out, stayweirdnetwork at gmail.com. We also have a Facebook page too. You guys can come and promote your stuff and share it out with all the other bunch of nerdy people.
Love it.
I also want to take a quick moment, real quick, to thank Mr. Blake Morgan. He's the reason that you and I were able to connect today, and I'm very excited. Make sure you check out his show, Blake's Buzz,
Buzz Buzz.
every Wednesday. Hate more or hate, love more, hate less, read comics. I was practicing that and I totally messed it up. But yeah, check out Blake. He's a great guy. He has a great show.
He
Um,
absolutely does.
if you like this show, like Adam said, please leave a review, hit subscribe, tell your friends because word of mouth is my friend. And remember, kids, it's only weird if you make it weird. So make it real weird. Adam, thanks so much for joining me tonight, man.
Thank you, Chris. This was a lot of fun. Really